Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Stepping Up to the Plate. So glad you could join us. I'm your host, Michael Vega. So glad to be joined on the dais once again by my main man, Al Prizzuti. And Al, so much to discuss today with all that's going on with the Red Sox. Late season revival, it seems, with healthy players starting to come back onto the roster. I don't think we got to discuss Chris Sale and his return, but we will. And then, of course, the recalcitrant Alex Verdugo maybe turning a corner there. You've got Trevor Story back in the fold, hitting the ball like crazy. Tristan Casas, unbelievable. We can talk about him, Al. But so much to discuss there. And then with the Bruins, Al, David, Krejci, we weren't surprised by this, but, Krejci leaving was kind of, I guess, preordained once, Patrice Bergeron had made his decision. But now, we can see what the Bruins are going to have to do now in terms of fortifying the roster. But, kind of sad to see them both walk out the door without a cup. And we can discuss that as well. And, of course, the Patriots out in Green Bay, the frozen, probably not so frozen tundra with some practices session scheduled against the Packers and, of course, an exhibition game. And then they'll be on their way after that down to Tennessee for another practice sessions with the Titans and then another game there. And we can talk about one of the guys that really captured everyone's fancy, Malik Cunningham. So a young quarterback who was there as a wide receiver, but who knows, he may wind up being a quarterback, but we can discuss him as well. And if we have a chance, maybe some Women's World Cup action, But we'll launch into it with the Red Sox. Al, late season revival here by the Sox. Are you, they're still stuck in that third spot outside of the play, out of the wild card.
Some of the pieces that were considered to be major pieces for this team are starting to come back. Sale pitched a pretty good game the other day. Had a no-hitter going to the fifth inning, but he struck out 7.
Yeah.
And he's on close watch for numbers of pitches, obviously. But he got through the fifth inning, and I think everything that people expected of him happened in that game. And I saw him do his post-game interview, and I think he's a pretty nice guy, basically. He seems to be very
earnest.
Natural. Yeah.
I think he's really
earnest.
And
he doesn't talk, stupid stuff. He just says, look, if they wanted me to do anything right now, I'll do it. And he's really happy with how, the Red Sox stood by him through thick and thin, I guess you could say. But,
sure.
Last night's game was an indicator of certain things that this team is better than what they've been with guys like Story coming back. Story made a beautiful play at shortstop that was fortified by Tristan Casas picking up the ball on the hop, which is pretty important too, because when Gil Hodges was the first baseman for the Dodgers, Pee Wee Reese was the shortstop. And Pee Wee Reese said, I would have never made the Hall of Fame if it wasn't for Gil Hodges at first base.
Oh, I remember that.
So you got Story, who's really a story. He was 4 for 4 the other day. Got a hit last night. Duvall's back to at least a potential home run when he's up at bat, because I don't think he's a 300 hitter. But Tristan, from the All-Star game till now, is showing that he's a better hitter than he was at the start of the season.
I think he has like 20 RBIs, like 13 extra base hits.
But he's got a big swing, so he's susceptible to strikeouts.
Yeah.
But He can hit the long ball.
But you know what? I like his approach at the plate. It's very deliberate. And he has his approach. And you know what? And he knows when to hut certain pitches.
He's at best a 240 hitter, I think.
Yeah.
But he'll hit 25 home runs. He'll knock in 60, 70, 80 runs. I think that's what they can expect out of him. Maybe more, but I don't think the ceiling is as high on him. But Story, I'm a Verdugo fan. I don't know anything about what goes on in the clubhouse and why the late stuff and all that stuff. But I mean, the kid is he's a better than average right fielder.
Yes.
He's been
Agreed.
a clutch hitter for the Red Sox all year. He's still hitting 270. He hit a home run last night, which I think was good to see. And I saw him hustle down to first base on a play that he was out on, but he was moving down the line.
Yeah. Do you think, though, Al, this is because he's seen the light and he knows that he has to make hay in these last few weeks of the season in order, to burnish his reputation? Because I think at that point where he got benched, and then, of course, he had this disciplinary action that was levied against him by Alex Cora, that the perception was that he might be a bit of a head case.
Well, I think what he is he's more of a fun, lighthearted kid than he appears to be. And, because when you see him talking on interviews and stuff, he's a pretty intelligent kid.
Oh, yeah.
So I think a little of perception hurts him. It's kind of like when you see a ball player like, I'll give you an example, Ted Williams and Joe DiMaggio. DiMaggio was an intense kind of guy. I mean, not the easiest guy in the world to get to.
Yeah.
And yet, he was. After the game, he'd go to Toots Shores in New York, and he drank with the guys, and he was, he married Marilyn Monroe. His first wife was an actress. That's what is completely different from Ted. Ted was a kind of a talk baseball, he'll talk all day long, but he never went out.
Right.
He had tough marriages. He wasn't the greatest father in the world, but he was much more introverted off the field.
But more oriented towards his craft.
Right. And so you see this, I think, and a little of that plays out in having the press always there on Verdugo.
Right. But
or
the
any
thing
ball
is that,
player.
I think that the thing that I think Alex Cora took issue with was when he showed up late.
Yeah.
And this came in the aftermath of him getting benched for a couple games. And at that point, Cora was like telling everyone, well, he just needs to get away from the game. He's pressing too hard. Well, might there have been other issues at play that resulted in the benching? And then when he shows up, and Cora proclaims it as the worst day he's ever had as a manager because they wound up losing because they didn't have him available and he couldn't pinch hit him. And they wound up losing a game against Toronto that they needed to win in order to close the gap, in the wild card race.
I think Cora's actions speak louder than his words.
Yes.
Though.
And you know what? Was that the impetus for this guy?
I don't think so.
Does he have some pride as a professional?
I think he is prideful. I think he is a type of ball player that wants to do well.
Right.
But it's like everybody else. You can't always be at a certain level. Sometimes you drop a little, and then you don't need to be, when that happens, pulled apart, so to speak, and put in a doghouse, which I think Cora, that's my opinion. I just thought he overreacted.
Well,
now, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he was continuously late. I think the guys show up 2 hours before the game. He was showing up maybe an hour and a half consistently. That's a different
Well, the thing is,
I don't know that.
If you're struggling, I think Alex Cora wanted to see you in the batting cage, putting in some work, getting some swings, working things out.
He didn't do it with Tristan Casas at the start of the year. He didn't do it with the kid down in He didn't do it with him. He didn't do it with Duvall when he came back into the lineup.
Well, Duvall,
he hasn't done anything.
Yeah, they're probably working on the wrist and stuff like that.
The point of the matter is, they're not helping the team if they can't do the things that they need. So I don't know. I think it's an issue. I doubt if he'll be with this team if they can find somebody to take him.
Well, Al, I would ask you to consider who then, if you were to choose amongst a certain group of players, as the rising stars or the most interesting players this season has produced, who would you like nominate? And I've got a couple in mind, but I'm thinking Yoshida has been a revelation, and Tristan Casas has been unbelievable as well. Late. Jaron Duran, I think, is a different player now.
Jaron Duran's bigger than I thought he was.
Oh yeah,
not only bigger, but he's
bigger.
muscular. I
Yeah,
mean, he's
athletic,
built.
and and then I would argue Nick Pivetta too.
Oh, Nick Pivetta, for anybody who was taken out of the starting lineup, okay, and didn't complain about being, although he didn't want to do it, but I mean being put into long relief.
Right.
The kid's been pretty much above what you'd expect. And I would say, as a pitcher, he was a 2 or a 3 for the Sox at the time. And as a reliever, he's a 1, if you want to use those things.
Yeah.
But he made a great play last night. That
For
ball
sure.
over his head. I mean, he caught that ball. I
Yeah.
mean, going back like this. So I think he's an athlete. He's a Canadian, I think. I think he was born
From
in Canada.
the hinterlands of Western Canada, I think.
But the guys, I think Yoshida is a conundrum because he started so poorly that he can't. Then he came on, so you don't know whether it took him a while to get used to major league,
Sure.
Pitching, or a culture. I think
all of that comes into play.
So all of that came into play, and what we're seeing is a pretty good ball player.
With a beautiful swing.
Got a nice swing. I mean, a lefty in Fenway Park, he goes all ways, which is a good sign because Devers does the same thing when he's on.
Yeah.
He'll hit the ball to left, center, left, right when he hits it. I mean, but Devers is average at best at third base, but he is a production machine.
And the guy I almost forgot, Justin Turner.
Oh, Justin Turner's been, from day one till today, the best ball player on the team.
So if you're picking
he's older.
if you're picking your sixth man, as we would do, say, for example, at the end of a Bruins season, who would you select right now?
I would put Turner there for a number of reasons. One, he plays third, he plays first. He's a DH. He's a 280. He's got some power. He hits in the clutch. He's been the guy that's been the most consistent player on this team. So I would probably put him there.
Al, I would be hard-pressed to argue with you, but I would make Justin Turner 1 and maybe Jaron Duran 1A.
Duran.
But
Duran's a surprise.
Yes.
I don't think Justin Turner.
Well, these guys, Turner wasn't with this team last year, so we're finding out about
You
it.
look at Turner's record, because I did the same thing when they got him. I went, But if you look at his record, the guy's a 280 lifetime hitter.
Yeah.
He can hit.
Professional hitter.
And he's always hit.
He's a professional hitter.
And it's always funny when I was a kid, we used to look at Ted and all these ball players, and you'd see, okay, he's hitting in the first month 280, in the end of the year at 310.
Yeah.
And then you'd look back at his record. The guy was a 300 hitter, 305, 320. The hitters always end up where they belong.
Right.
So if they start slow, they finish fast. If they finish fast, start fast,
they probably
finish
peter
slow.
out. Yeah.
But it's amazing. But Turner, he's a pretty decent ball player though, and he's got a way at the plate where he leans, kind of like
Yes. I like it. It's kind of upright, a little upright.
like Verdugo. He kind of leans back a little, but he takes the inside pin. And don't forget, he got hit in the face in spring training. I mean,
He and Tanner Houck too.
yeah. Well, Tanner Houck got hit on the ball, but I mean, he got hit at bat, and a guy throwing. So I think the Sox will be lucky if they get into
the playoffs.
If they do get into the playoffs, and Sale is better than what we all think he's going to be, because he only had one really start here.
And then you get Tanner Houck back, and Whitlock will be coming back shortly.
And you got Pivetta.
Yeah.
I think they could surprise a lot of teams. I don't think a lot of teams want to face a 1-2 Sale.
Yeah. Do you think,
He's a lefty.
kind of pivoting here to the Bruins, they could probably be the Florida Panthers in this year's playoffs,
Well, I think the interesting thing about the Bruins, and somebody mentioned this, and I don't know who it is, but I'll kind of paraphrase. What's happened here this year, I'm not talking during the year, during the off season, is that the Bruins have changed their face.
Oh, no doubt.
And
No
they
doubt.
went from an older team to losing two of their oldest players and two of their steadfast kind of players. I wouldn't say Krejci was at this level last year, one of their better players.
A lot of players with a lot of mileage on them.
Yeah, and Bergeron, I think, was hurt more than what we think. But that aside now, and you look at the Bruins, much younger, going to be younger, in a league now that wants young and fast. The Bruins did pick up some muscle, but I don't know. I think they're going to be, like you say, a team that went from the greatest record in NHL history to a team that's going to be, although Bergeron thinks they're going to be fine. I don't think losing Bergeron and Krejci means all that much to the team. What it does mean is the chemistry isn't the same.
Correct.
But I think they've got a significant amount of players that are still. They're still going to be in the playoffs, and they're still going to be a good team. I don't think they'll play anywhere near like they played.
I think, Al, what they will be in search of this year will be an identity.
Yeah, well,
they'll be looking for an identity. Who's going to lead them? Who's going to be the guy who's going to wear the C and be as even-keeled as Bergeron was?
Well,
and that's going to be a difficult task for anyone who steps into that role.
I'll tell you that the cap is a real problem for the Bruins, and it is for anybody in the NHL, especially if you've got some guys on your team making 10, 11 like Pasternak.
Yeah.
But I think, in fairness to the Bruins and Cam Neely, I'm talking about Cam Neely and the GM and all that. They picked up. To me, to win the Stanley Cup, you have to have a combination of veterans and young players.
Right.
And losing two veterans, Bergeron and Krejci, and picking up three veterans, Van Riemsdyk, Lucic, and Shattenkirk, three guys that have been around that can play.
Right.
So you lose Foligno, who was kind of a stabilizer and great but I think the mix is going to be very, very interesting to watch. Yeah. And I think the Bruins have some young players that can, not the ones that were on the team. I'm talking about coming up like Fabian Lysell and Leroy and all that stuff. So time will tell. If they get into the playoffs, they do what the Panthers did. Panthers were considered to be one of the top teams in that division before the season started, and they kind of fumbled around and just barely made the playoffs.
They barely made it on the last week of the playoffs. I mean,
they come in eighth, and then they go out and beat the Bruins, who finished first.
And I mean, they get all the way to the Stanley Cup, and they run into old friend Bruce Cassidy there, and unbelievable.
What I don't understand, and maybe you know more about this than I do, is there a cap in the NBA?
Yes.
Well, how can they have a cap in the NBA?
Because it's going to grow.
Yeah, but how can you have a cap?
They have
well,
like a
I mean, the cap in the NHL is small compared to. I mean, you got 25 guys.
I think the TV money is a little bit bigger in the NBA.
Yeah, so but you give Brown $360 million a year for 5 years,
right.
And then Jason Tatum. How can you mesh that all in and say, well, what could be their total? And what is the cap? It's got to be humongous.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to shed.
And
some
even if
contracts.
They go over it,
right?
You're
not going to.
It's a little different.
Yeah, it is. But it's going to be a situation where the Celtics will have to contend with that when the time comes. But right now we're looking forward to this week's preseason exhibition between the Patriots and the Green Bay Packers. The Packers, now under new leadership, at the helm with Jordan Love taking over for Aaron Rodgers, who's now with the Jets. And, the Jets, the darlings of the Hard Knocks on HBO. that team looks like they're going to be something, Al, in the AFC East. And
Well,
what are the Patriots going to be? Will they be a middling team with Mac Jones, or do they turn their eyes towards a guy like Malik Campbell, who got everyone pretty excited, with the performance he had at the tail end of exhibition loss against the Texans? But the thing is that
if you read the internet, which I did this morning on the Patriots, interesting that somebody came out and said that there's I don't want to call it a rift, but
between Zappy and Jones.
Zappy and Jones, which is kind of interesting because Malik could slide right into that.
There.
But now I don't watch the preseason with any expectation at all. What I watch is to watch certain players.
Yeah.
And
that's
I could care less if they lose 28-14 or whatever. But I want to see formations. I want to see how certain players, new players that I've never seen play. Now, I think the Patriots did themselves a service by bringing in Ezekiel Elliott, because this kid is only 28.
But he's a veteran. He's
been a veteran. He's Ohio State.
Well, not only that, he helps fortify the running back position that has gotten, riddled with injuries over the course of the seasons past. But he also brings in, a viable pass catcher out of the backfield.
He's a blocker too.
And yes, Al, bingo for you. He can blitz pick up as best.
He's going to help Jones for sure.
And Jones is going to be happy to see him in there on passing downs. Who can chip somebody on his way out of the backfield, make it difficult for a pass rusher.
Plus, he's going to help. My guess is we're going to see Malik in a number of plays. Okay.
Yes.
If somebody goes, if Jones was either to go down or not do well, I don't think it's going to be Zappy. I think it'll be Malik. And the other thing is having somebody like Elliott in the backfield, okay, it's going to help a kid like Malik because he blocks.
Now, Malik Cunningham, I think, is going to be a guy that's going to enable Bill O'Brien maybe to install certain tweaks to the offense when he gets him in there. Will he use him on a jet sweep?
What was the kid's name?
Or will he use him on a jet sweep with a throwback to a receiver on the opposite end?
But if you wanted to talk about predictability, Belichick is the Patriots have been a predictable team. If you remember back when the Patriots brought in the kid from Cincinnati that was a pretty good player for years. He was 30.
Corey Dillon.
He was 30 years old when they got him. He ran for 1,600 yards with the Patriots. All right?
Yeah.
And this kid's only 28.
Yeah.
And don't forget, if you look at his record 2 years ago, this kid was as good as anybody in the league. So I think he takes these things that said, okay, could this be another Corey Dillon?
Yeah.
And he goes after it. And I think it was a good thing.
Well, the thing is that he's going to help. He's going to help with the blocking too, and that's going to be important.
Yeah.
And the way the offensive line has kind of struggled of late.
Well,
that's the thing that I'm going to keep my eye on this next preseason game. And I'm like you, Al. I'm not so much preoccupied with the result. I'd like to see how guys perform. Yeah. And I'll tell you, one guy who jumped out at me on defense was this rookie defensive end, Keon White.
Yeah.
That guy's going to be blowing up a lot of plays.
Yeah.
They're going to get him on the edge. And he was coming downhill all the time. Very exciting.
I think their defense is their core right now. I think that they'll win. If they win, they're going to win on defense. Their offensive line, I think, is
going to be,
work.
It's going to be an Achilles heel for this team. Work. I think the offensive line has to be shored up.
And I know we have a little difference of opinion on this, but I think the quarterback situation is still gray. I don't think you have. I know that O'Brien's going to put Jones in there,
right?
And I hope that this kid is ready. My guess is he doesn't have as many tools still as other great quarterbacks. But
he still has Devontae Parker. He still has Juju Smith-Schuster that they went out and got.
These are good guys.
These aren't the deep. But then he has Tyquan Thornton who showed up.
Yeah.
They can throw Malik Campbell in. Cunningham in there. They can throw all these guys.
We'll see.
into the mix. And
I'm not as high on him as other people, as some people. Let me put it that way. And then if you go to Zappi or Malik, you're talking, well, we got to wait and see. Even if they have 1 or 2 games, they're young.
Yeah.
You know, young to the
Well,
the
the
league.
thing that I'm most concerned about is keeping Mac Jones upright. Keeping him upright, and that's going to fall to the offensive line for the Patriots. So it'll be interesting to see.
Well, that's a real problem for Jones, because what he needs most is an offensive line.
give him
Most
time.
quarterbacks do,
some
but
time.
he's a drop back guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to scramble and get out.
No.
So if the offensive line can't hold the defensive line of the opposing team, he's in trouble.
And that's why it's going to be imperative for the line to give him some time, or else O'Brien's going to have to incorporate a short to intermediate passing scheme, or devise some plays with the running game to possess the ball, to move the chains, to give him the opportunity to.
He's got to be able to see
succeed.
the options, though. That's the problem. I mean, because what happens with a lot of dropbacks, and Brady was better at it because he was a drop back, is to see his options.
Yeah.
But he also had a lot of weapons that this kid might not have. I would use the running back there from Oklahoma,
Ramondre Stevenson.
I would use him as a somebody special in a blitz, because you throw.
Maybe not have Mac Jones play under center as much.
Yeah,
have him in the shotgun, give him a chance to get a good pre-snap read.
Dropping back helps somebody like him because he's stable. To run back, I mean, I don't think he's got the greatest
feet. The footwork. Yeah, it's probably
Brady
not
was a
as
different type of guy. I mean, you can't compare the two.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this kid's.
Well, Brady was at a point in his career when he was winning all the Super Bowls where, as he used to say, he knew the answers to all to the test.
But he's more athletic than this kid.
Yeah, a little bit.
This kid, I think, this kid. Brady did a lot of stuff that he got the ball away quick. I mean, his release was really good. He had good receivers. He saw options. When one thing didn't work, he went to the other. He looked off. Well, he knew what he was doing.
Well, Al, the strongest part of Brady's game was right here. It was right between the ears there.
Well, just before we finish up, I did watch. I know we were going to talk a little about soccer, but I did watch I think it's the Cincinnati. I'm a tennis fan. But it was fascinating to watch Alcaraz playing a kid named Thompson. And Thompson had him beat.
Oh, this is a pre-US Open tournament?
Before. Yeah. But he had him beat, and I was watching it, and my wife, I said to him, watch this kid lose.
Oh.
Not Alcaraz.
Thompson.
I said, because he thinks he's going to have to make a tremendous shot to beat Alcaraz. And Alcaraz, I'll tell you, I never saw him have as many unforced errors as he had. And yet, at the end of the day, when it matters, the good guys always execute, and the bad guys, I hate to use the word choke, but it's a choke. And that's what happened in that match last night. And Alcaraz won again. He did it against Hurkacz, the tournament before, who actually has a better serve. Yeah. This kid struggles a little on hard surfaces.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's going to be an odds-on favorite to win the U.S. Open, but I'm hoping Djokovic.
Well, we can talk more about that and more World Cup when we come back next time. But we'll be happy to discuss that. We'll probably have a result for you by then as well, because it'll be Spain versus either England or Australia in the final. But be sure to catch up on that with us here next time on Stepping Up to the Plate. All right, everybody, that does it for us. We'll look forward to that, and look forward to seeing you next time. All right, everybody, take care.